It's 16 minutes past 7. Just when you thought it was safe to listen to the news again, Brexit is back. Michel Barnier, the EU's chief negotiator, warned yesterday that the UK is heading for no deal on trade with the EU. The British government has been telling him that he needs a new negotiating mandate from the member states. Talks resume tomorrow. Now, one person for whom this is all tremendously good news is our Europe editor, Katya Adler. Morning, Katya.
Good morning. I don't know if it's good. Yes, I don't know if it's good news. And also, you thought it was safe to listen to the news, and then Katya Adler's back talking about Brexit.
No, we're delighted about that. How seriously should we take this public posturing?
So I think if you look at normal trade negotiations, it's quite natural. We're going to round 4 of negotiations that at this early stage you would expect, drama, clashes. But then there would normally be time for everybody to calm down. I think what's not normal about these negotiations, Nick, is first of all, that trade negotiations are generally about bringing sides closer together. This one is actually pulling the EU and the UK further apart, after us having been members of the EU. COVID-19, that means it's far from normal. Negotiations, have faltered because of it. They were delayed because of it. And now they're taking place screen to screen instead of face to face. That means when there are real clashes, apart from the posturing, you can't have that cup of coffee or walk around the block to try and untangle all of that. And also the timetable, like I said, there's not very much time to work out sticking points between the two sides. This month is the last moment that the EU and UK can say, you know what, actually, I think we need to talk past the end of this year. Downing Street over and over again has ruled out an extension of negotiations and the transition period. And then on top of that, I'd say, again, in trade negotiations, you're normally looking at mutual economic benefit. And in this case, both sides have very big political priorities, which are adding to the clashes over competition regulations or fishing or the governance of the whole agreement. And that is sovereignty on the UK side, post-Brexit sovereignty, and on the EU side, the European project, the integrity of the single market, which goes, beyond economics. And so recently we had a really frank, that's a polite word, of exchanges between the two main negotiators, initiated by David Frost. Some posturing, you could say, aimed at a domestic audience before compromise, the same then on the EU side. But David Frost's letter really ruffled the feathers in Brussels. You'll hear that now from Nathalie Loiseau. She's the co-chair of the UK committee in the European Parliament.
Tell me why the letter sent by David Frost was so aggressive. Let me tell you something. It doesn't help. There are a number of requests included in the British negotiating texts which do as if the UK was still in the European Union, but refusing to accept rules and obligations of a member state.
It's at times like these, Katya, that you have to not listen to what they say, but look for the room for compromise, isn't it? Can you see it? Is it there?
No, you're absolutely right, Nick. And I think, everything, even though there's going to be this sort of high-level EU-UK summit this month to talk about progress or not so far, and originally the UK had threatened to walk away if it didn't see it, the idea, the acceptance, the thought on both sides is that they will continue talking into the autumn. So everything is pushing towards a hot autumn again. And you might say, I think we've seen this movie before. Do you remember last autumn where, those Brexit deal negotiations went down to the wire in the autumn? The danger that we're hearing from trade negotiators is that then it was about tweaking an original proposal on Northern Ireland that had come from the EU side. It came down to 10 pages of text. Now we're talking about waiting to the last minute on massive areas of a complex trade agreement on the future of the EU and the UK. What happens if both sides miss it? Even when Boris Johnson says he wants a deal, the EU says they want a deal. And WTO, yes, if there's no deal, the two sides could negotiate on that. But the clue's in the name. The WTO rules is about trade. What about services? We're a service-based economy. What about Dover or the land border, the Irish land border? What about the border between Gibraltar and Spain or police cooperation? So for all of those reasons, there is thought that the negotiating sides, posturing apart, as you said, will try and look for those compromises. We can see them. We just don't know if they're going to make them.
Thank you, Katya. And you can hear much more from her in her programme Meanwhile in Brussels, which is going out on Radio 4 tonight at 8 o'clock.